Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another unboxing video, and I'm moving into classical music here, but from a musician who's not necessarily known for that. We're talking about Tony Banks, 18 pieces for orchestra, 7, 6 and 5. So let's have a look inside the box first of all. This is Tony Banks, 18 pieces for orchestra, 7, 6 and 5 on the Naxos label. It's a 3 CD box set with the tracks on the back. Inside is a booklet with the 3 discs. 7 is first. All the details are on the back. And 5. And then the booklet is very detailed. You can tell it's detailed and you can see the size of the font, but there's full story behind the tracks. Tony's involved as well, so the full background of how the tracks came together, the pieces of music, the orchestras used, the challenges that were required, and the things that had to jump, hoops that had to jump through, etc. But really great story, super stuff. And then there's a little bio against all the key musicians involved in the music as well. So that is Tony Banks, 18 pieces for orchestra, 7, 6 and 5. Tony Banks, 18 pieces for orchestra, 7, 6 and 5. 3 CD set as you've just seen with a great informative booklet. I love this music. I'm married to Sue, my wife behind me, who is a classically trained violinist. So this house is full of classical music. And as I've gone through life, my understanding and appreciation of classical music has grown exponentially. Also, I'm aware that the musicians that I grew up with, many of them were from that world. They were trained classically, but were never really given a chance to show what they could do in that field. Some of them, Rick Wakeman, has been able to show that side of himself for decades and has done really well. Keith Emerson with his piano concerto, one of the most important pieces of classical music, I feel, from the most recent decades, came out in the height of punk. He was seen as a dinosaur. It wasn't supposed to be like next to a 3-minute pop song. It was a piece of classical music, but of course the classical world stared in at the rock world, and if you're from the rock world, they didn't want to know. Jon Lord, the same concerto for group and orchestra with Deep Purple. Similar thing. The classical musicians thought, well, this can't be serious. Only in recent years, before Jon's tragic death, did we see people start to see that Jon Lord was writing the Durham Concerto, that he was a voice within that world. And now we come to Tony Banks from Genesis, who writes possibly the most complete classical music symphonies out of all of them. The first one, 7, from 2002, the London Philharmonic. But if you watch the podcast I did with Tony Banks, how lucky was I to talk to Tony, those kind of feelings between the rock and classical world were alive and well, unfortunately. As soon as you say from a rock band, a lot of classical musicians go, and sometimes you've only got one chance to sight read, an orchestra's expensive. And so it was interesting hearing Tony's view on that. Me saying that in somehow might be painting a picture where this first album is not as good as the others. It is. You wouldn't know. Obviously, in Tony Banks' mind, what he expected, what he envisaged, didn't maybe turn out as he expected. But for me, the listener, it's fantastic. Black Down came from improvisations. It's an incredible piece of music. If you're into Vaughan Williams and Elgar, this is seeping out through all of the music. The Spirit of Gravity, Tony talks about the fact his idea of this is not how it ended up. But to me, it sounds great. Number 6, which was made in 2011 with the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. This is a different orchestra. The orchestra were Genesis fans. They love doing film music. Blade on this album, on number 6, if I can find it. And I can. Bear with me here. Blade, which is track 3, piece number 3. This is Charlie Sim on violin. This piece of music is just incredible. I love violin music anyway because of Sue, my wife, but this is a highlight for me in this box set. Siren was played on Classic FM. It sold really well, and at last we had classical music fans accepting this coming in from a technically rock musician. The best one though is number 5, which was from the Czech Symphony Orchestra, and this is arranged by Nick Ingham. A different approach. This is where Tony kind of did demos for everything, demoed all the orchestral parts and basically created a template for what he wanted. And a lot of the piano parts made the final recording. But musically, this is, to me, is some of the best music I've heard. Ebb and Flow is the soundtrack to a film that has yet to be made. That's what it sounds like. And Renaissance, the choir sitting in the background, the violin about 4 minutes in. Oh, wow. Absolutely beautiful music from this one. It's kind of like got a Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore type feel to it. It's just brilliant. So that is, let's find it here, 18 pieces for orchestra by Tony Banks, 7, 6 and 5. I hope there's a number 4. I really do. If you're a fan of Genesis, and again, if those of you grown up with classic rock, we have seen that music from Genesis and Yes and ELP almost be the classical music of where we are in our lives. And I think it's new fans of classical music, people who've gone through music college in the last 10 years, are listening to these musicians and realizing that what they produced is the new classical music. So I hope that this CD set really opens up the world for people to realize just how talented Tony Banks is, and another side of him outside of Genesis. All those great tracks he helped record and write, and a lot of those had classical elements in how he composed them. But here is his classical pieces all together in one box set from Naxos Records. Highly recommended. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Take care, all of you. Subscribe, become patrons, YouTube members, buy a t-shirt. Take care, keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.